Hey guys, how you doing? I'm very sorry I wasn't able to give you my reviews on the other three Mission Impossible films. I've been on vacation for the past 2 weeks, so I'm sorry for the inconvenience. But today I am going to be reviewing Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. I promise you guys I will review these later on, but now, since I saw MI5, I would like to review that for you guys. And just so you know this, guys, I'm going to keep this review as spoiler-free as I possibly can, because I know a lot of people haven't seen it, but for those of you that have, if you'd like me to do a spoiler review of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, just hit that like button, send some comments, and I will definitely give you a spoiler review for Mission Impossible 5. But for now, guys, let's get into this. Alright, so MI5 is directed by Christopher McQuarrie, a brand new director to the Mission Impossible franchise, as it keeps going, and it stars, once again, Tom Cruise as superstar agent Ethan Hunt. And in this film, he and his team are going to take down the Syndicate, which are basically the anti-IMF. In the process, the IMF has now been shut down, and they've been forced to join the CIA, held by Alec Baldwin's character, which I will not spoil. For this mission, he and his team attempt to take down the Syndicate. Now, the Syndicate are the anti-IMF agents. They think like the IMF, they work like the IMF, and they are as smart as the IMF. So, taking them down may actually be an impossible task, which I kind of like as Mission Impossible, impossible task. I really thought the plot was very good for this movie. And of course, the beginning scene with an incredibly beautiful, long, and wide take of Tom Cruise being suspended in midair on a plane. That was amazing. Action! Just to let you guys know, I did see this movie in the IMAX, and I know what you guys are about to be asking. So what did I think of the film? Did I like the film? Yes. Did I love it? No. To be very honest with you guys, I was actually very disappointed with the new Mission Impossible film. This is a film that I think could have been better if it did a few things differently, but overall, this was not as good of a movie as Ghost Protocol. I feel like I was let down by a lot of the things that happened in this film. But without giving your hopes up, let me start by talking about the positives. Tom Cruise is back as Ethan Hunt, which is awesome. He's kicking ass. He's hanging on a plane. He's, of course, riding a motorcycle. I've always loved the character of Ethan Hunt. I've always thought he was really cool, and I've always liked the fact that Tom Cruise always commits to his own stunts, especially when he plays this character. He's always fun to watch, especially when it's in action. About halfway through the movie, and if you saw the trailer, then you know, there's a motorcycle chase. This chase is awesome. Some of the best camera work I've ever seen in a motorcycle chase. The filmmaking process behind just the 3-minute segment was breathtaking. I absolutely love that sequence. I was literally gripping the edge of my seat when I was watching it. It was just so really cool to just watch these actors on motorcycles and like cameras behind them just following them. The next thing I want to add to the positives for the movie is they brought back Ving Rhames, and he's actually playing a part of this plot. And I absolutely love that. If you watched my first Mission Impossible review, you know that Ving Rhames, to me, was my favorite addition to that movie. He brought so much comedy, warmth, pure entertainment to that character who could have been just this bland guy. And then he was all screwed up in Mission Impossible 2. And then for MI3, he was back to being awesome. But this movie, I am so glad that they brought him back because I love his character. But in this movie, I found something very peculiar. He actually deeply cares about Ethan. This is a brief little spoiler. I'm sorry, guys. So just spoiler alert for this maybe 45-second thing. Luther is aware that Jeremy Renner's character, Brandt, is now in the CIA, and he feels that he might not be as trustworthy towards talking about Ethan. Luther is trying to stick up for Ethan, saying that he loves Ethan, and that if you do this, I will kill you, basically something like that. But when you really think about it, Ethan was the person that resurrected Luther from the disavowed. He's the guy that brought him back to doing missions, and he's awesome. Another positive to this film is that Simon Pegg is back as Benji Dunn. I love Simon Pegg. I love that guy. He's great in everything he's in. I hope that he continues to be in Mission Impossible movies, because he surprisingly played a very intricate role in this movie. Not to say that that's that it's that much different from MI4. But in this movie, he actually kind of kicks some ass in a couple scenes, which was pretty nice because his character gets to do more than just shooting a guy in Ghost Protocol, which I liked a lot. I think his character should definitely be more explored, and he should definitely be able to be in more of the action. And then for my final point for the positives, we have Rebecca Ferguson. Whoa, I've never heard of the actress, but oh my god, she is fantastic in this movie. Her role is really good. I mean, she's awesome. I would love to just see her in more movies in general, but for Mission Impossible, she's great. You don't know if you can trust her or not, but I think for the majority of scenes, she's fantastic. Not to mention absolutely stunning. She is, especially on that motorcycle. Whoa, that was a that added up to a great sequence. But other than that, she can handle guns. She can kick ass. She can also wield a knife, which is also another great scene in the movie that I forgot to mention with the great scenes. Just seeing her with that knife and that knife trick, that was like a dream come true. I think she's a great addition to the cast. Okay, now that I have the positives removed, time to go to the things that I didn't like about this movie. And it's a striking amount of stuff. I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to get more specific with what I'm talking about here. This movie, I timed it, is 2 hours and 3 minutes long. This movie should have been 25 minutes shorter. Now I'm going to get specific. The action's great. The acting's great. I enjoy the protagonists. They're good. I really like them. Tom Cruise, Simon Pegg, Ving Rhames. I like them all. I do. And I like Rebecca Ferguson a lot. But the villain, no. Was the Syndicate like this big thing? Because it felt very confusing from time to time. Because there are moments where the action just bleeds out into just dialogue. But the sad thing is that the dialogue is kind of boring. And normally for like a spy thriller like this, you should have incredible dialogue between characters that is cool and expresses total exposition. Sadly, this movie just did not have that. The connections between the villain and Rebecca Ferguson's character just, in my opinion, didn't work. Look, I really don't want to break down Christopher McQuarrie because he wrote one of my favorite movies of all time, The Usual Suspects. He also directed a movie called Jack Reacher with Tom Cruise, and that movie was okay. The dialogue scenes were kind of boring, which sadly was kind of a trend in this movie. See, the dialogue, it really dragged a lot. It's like, it goes on for maybe 3 minutes when, like, a minute and a half, you're like, okay, alright. The Syndicate, I think, is absolutely terrible with everything that they do. And I think it's what the protagonists think about the Syndicate that just really pissed me off throughout the majority of this movie. It's real. And then they're like, oh, it's not real. And then they're like, it's real, not real, not real, 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 not real. It's so inconsistent in terms of what they did for the Syndicate that you just really can't understand it properly enough. I felt like it feels to me like they rewrote a lot of the script, and because of that, it tried to make the Syndicate this very intricate organization that really isn't explored. They did something cool in the beginning with Tom Cruise, but other than that, I just wasn't really that invested in what they wanted to do because the writing just was very boring. The dialogue was draggy. There wasn't, to me, and I really hesitate to say this, but there was not enough action in this movie. That really just messed it up. The thing I believe we all loved about Ghost Protocol was that for the majority of it, it was just an incredible action film that had incredible substance infused with it to always make you feel on edge, to always make you feel just this riveting sense of action and just gripping the edge of your seat every 5 minutes. For this movie, it tries to take the best elements of Ghost Protocol and a lot of elements from the first movie and try to combine them into one movie, hoping it's going to be an action extravaganza. The problem with that is that if you watched my Mission Impossible 1 review, you guys know that, to me, Mission Impossible 1 is more of a suspense movie than an action film because of the way it's crafted. There's no gunfights, there's really no explosions, It's basically a man on the run and his survival and how suspenseful it is that the agency believes that he is a mole. But I feel like the combination of those two elements just they don't really work. Therefore, they create a movie that feels very inconsistent when it drops out of the action and then goes to the more dialogue plots with this guy who you believe is the villain. It's like, is he the bad guy or is this person the bad guy? Is Rebecca Ferguson really involved in this? Is she really that bad or is the syndicate this? Is it that? It's really never fully explained until the very end. But even then, it's very convoluted because you still ask so many questions that just kind of remain unanswered. Let's talk about Alec Baldwin's character. Whoa. Oh my god. What an asshole. I absolutely hated Alec Baldwin in this movie. He was like this asshole that would just disbelieve everything that people would say. He's always like, he just doesn't feel like a real character, in my opinion. He feels like this movie character that was, in a way, taken out of like those assholes from Transformers. He didn't feel like he belonged in this movie whatsoever. But what I heard from the IMDb site was that they actually rewrote the ending in a way so that Alec Baldwin could be there. You feel this inconsistency, and it's like you don't really care at the same time because there are moments where you kind of just sit there and you're a little bit bored. You're like, can we just get to the action or like Ethan Hunt or just any of the characters, please? You really don't care because they go into like these flashbacks or scenes that in a way don't really make sense because they're never explained and they're never shown within flashback sequences. Like, I mean, if there were flashback sequences in this movie, it would make sense. We just didn't get that. So, like, the banter between the bad guys kind of doesn't work because you don't know anything about them. To me, I felt like that was the only problem with Ghost Protocol was the villain or villains plural. The villains in the movie just didn't really work out a lot. I mean, I love the movie, but the villains they were kind of like the worst aspect of that movie because you don't really know anything about them. They don't nothing's really explained about them. They're just there to do villainous acts and stuff like that. But anyways, back to Rogue Nation. So, having said that, there are a lot of positives with this movie, and I found just as much negative with the movie. But I still am edging towards a positive review on this movie because, quite frankly, I enjoyed it. I feel like they were trying to combine the two best Mission Impossible movies, and I feel like they tried to make it work, but the writing with some of the dialogue scenes is like 2 minutes too long. You kind of just want it to end. There were parts in the movie where I was kind of like this. I was kind of hedging toward the side here. I was like, alright, okay, we don't know anything about them. We don't really know about the Syndicate, which I just thought was pretty stupid, considering Christopher McQuarrie's excellent writing, that he couldn't try to explain to us if the Syndicate just really was this, and it's like, who's really running it, who's responsible for it, but the majority of it is kind of left to our interpretation, which I can understand sometimes in movies that are very intricate or like psychological, that like it's up to the imagination of the audience to find out how it could continue. But I believe that with a movie like MI5 that's marketed as a straight up action movie, that you got to explain a couple things, and they didn't. I was very upset walking out of it thinking, that's it? Because it ended like very abruptly. I didn't want it to end the way it did, which leads me to my final negative thought, were how the secondary characters worked with Ethan Hunt in this movie. I would say the first 40 minutes of this movie are excellent. I absolutely loved the first 40 minutes. I was definitely into it. This was awesome. They had a lot of intrigue, a lot of cool stuff. Rebecca Ferguson, a lot of cool stuff. Rebecca Ferguson, and they had a very cool way of trying to get Simon Pegg's character into all the action. And that is good for the first 40 minutes of the movie. Then after that, you really want to see the other characters trying to come to Ethan, like Jeremy Renner's character. But unfortunately, throughout a lot of this movie, the characters don't really get to do a lot. Tom Cruise kind of gets to do like everything. I think that's good and I think that's bad. Good because Tom Cruise is always committed to his own stunts. He does his own driving. The motorcycle chase scene, that was all him. But bad because you kind of want all of them to do something. They're kind of just there to be there and in a way to try to help Ethan, but it's never really shown because a lot of the stuff's off screen. But to be fair, MI5, it's an enjoyable movie, but it's definitely a flawed one. It's very inconsistent. The plot is kind of jumbled sometimes, but a lot of scenes are fun to watch, especially the airplane scene and the motorcycle chase scene, Rebecca Ferguson. All those things are just so much fun to watch. Oh, and by the way, I meant to say Rebecca Ferguson with a knife because that part was like I was in heaven at that moment because Rebecca Ferguson is absolutely just perfect in this role. But other than that, MI5, I enjoyed it. I did. It just wasn't as good of a movie as it could have been. It was good, but it wasn't great. It was very disappointing. And I really hate to compare movies, but if you compare this to Ghost Protocol, this movie is nowhere near as amazing as all the stuff that happened in Ghost Protocol. One last thing, don't see it in the IMAX. I took the pleasure of seeing it in the IMAX. There really wasn't, except for the airplane scene, I didn't feel any of the other scenes felt right to see in IMAX. I mean, that Burj Khalifa scene in MI4 was the most exhilarating thing I saw at the IMAX since Avatar. With that airplane scene at the beginning, you felt as if you were there with him. You felt the wind getting pushed on you, and that was excellent. The first 40 minutes of the movie truly were excellent. I loved it. It was a pretty entertaining movie. I mean, I didn't think it was really that great. I didn't. I felt like it was a bit overrated in terms of the ratings that it got. But I'm gonna be fair with this. So, but if you guys are really keen to see this, don't let my review spoil you. Go see this movie. If you love it, that's great. If you don't, I'm sorry. I'm going to give Mission Impossible Rogue Nation a B minus. I think the movie was good in a lot of scenes. I felt like a lot of scenes were cool, especially with Rebecca Ferguson. But at the same time, there's just a little bit too much dialogue and just a lot less action because I wanted a lot of action in this movie, and that's really not what I got at all. And there weren't a lot of like gadgetry in this movie that really was amazing. I enjoyed it. I did. I just didn't find it as good as 4 or 1. But that's just my opinion. Well, anyway, guys, thank you for watching my review for Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. If you guys want to see me do a spoiler review or just anything, just you know what to do. Hit the like button. Send me those comments. I want your comments. Anyone who watches this movie review, just give it comments. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear what you guys think about my reviews, how I can make them better, and anything I can do to make you guys feel better watching my reviews. Just send me those comments and stay tuned.